What is going on, Nuggets Nation, NBA fans? Welcome back into Nuggets Today, presented by FanArt. My name is Tom Leuthner, and today I have a little bit of a different episode for you guys. So I've been talking to a fan of the podcast who's also a member of the community that I am a member of on Instagram, and that is Stretch. Now, he had presented the idea to me to compare teams a little bit, maybe the main rivals or who I think are the main competitors in the Western Conference. So I'm going to do that. Now, I will have a Summer League Game 2 breakdown tomorrow. I am on a little bit of a time restraint, so I'm not going to be able to get a clear, breakdown in before or after the game, rather. So I will be watching the game tonight and hopefully getting an episode in for you guys tomorrow. So, like I said, I want to hop into comparisons of teams, especially after the additions that Denver made and teams are still going to make. Now, the first team that I want to compare is obviously the Thunder, who are the new NBA champions that everybody has to dethrone, and a team that Denver, I think, could have beaten last year if they had maybe a little bit more depth and obviously a healthy roster. So I'm going to go down breaking down the starting fives and who I like better, starting five, who I think is better. So obviously we're going to go point guard to center. One by one. Obviously, I'm going to take Shea there. Shea's the MVP. Guy averaged an absurd amount of points. And not that I think Jamal Murray's bad, but I do think Murray's a little too streaky. Now, Shea didn't play phenomenally against Denver, but MVP caliber player, top 10 probably player in the league at the moment. I'm not the biggest fan of his game, but I would take him over Murray. Now, the shooting guard position, I'm going to take actually Christian Braun. I know people are going to say I'm a little biased. I do not like Dort's game. Now, Dort is going to stand in the corner and he's going to hit threes, or he's going to play no offense at all. Now, you could say he's a little bit of a better defender. He's definitely more. I don't want to use the word impactful because I think that Brown may be more impactful, but he's definitely more physical than Brown is. Maybe plays a more physical caliber of defense than Brown. He throws his body around, he flops, but I would take Brown. Brown's not a terrible defender. We're able to see that he's a pretty good defender. I think that maybe slightly overrated on the defensive end, but he's a way better offensive player than Lou Dort. So I would take Christian Brown. Now you go to the small forward, and this is something I'm going to get into in a little bit, but I would take Jalen Williams over Cam Johnson right now. Pushing ahead, I think that Chet and AG might be a little bit of an even matchup there. I think that AG might be a little bit over Chet, actually, which, again, maybe that's biased because I like the Nuggets and I cover the Nuggets. But I would take AG personally. I think that AG shot better splits, more athletic than Chet is. Chet is good, and I think AG is a better defender all around. Now, Chet's a better rim protector, but AG can go out and guard the perimeter and guard just about anybody 1 through 5 if you really need him to. And I also think that he brings a brand of basketball to Denver and the community that Denver needs, and I don't think that Chet really does that. I think that AG gets everybody going. They named him Mr. Nugget for a reason. And obviously, I have Jokic over Hartenstein. Now, when it comes to bench play, my original belief was that OKC had a deeper bench than Denver, and now that I'm going down and breaking it down, I really don't think so. I think at this point, I may be close to taking the Nuggets bench over OKC's bench. Now, Jalen Williams played pretty good in the playoffs against Denver, but I would take Jonas over him. Then you look at Caruso. Caruso might be a guy I'd take over anybody on the Nuggets bench except for maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. right now. I think that's the closest player to Caruso. And then obviously Denver has Holmes. They have Strother. Pickett, I guess, is the backup one right now. You have Bruce Brown. I don't think they're going to play him, but Zeke Najee's there, obviously. And then your two-way guys or whoever you sign to that last roster spot. But I do know that the Thunder have a deep bench. They have, obviously they have guys like A.J. Mitchell. They have guys like Caruso. They have guys like Isaiah Joe who are shooters. But I think that Denver's bench right now might be more powerful. Maybe not as deep, but more powerful than the OKC bench. This next team I want to hop into is a team that seems pretty good on paper. I think they're an amazing roster. I think that Denver's a better roster, but I think they're a very good roster. They finished top 3 in the West, and they're a little bit close to being in shambles right now. There's a lot of news that they may move on from LeBron, and that is the Denver Nuggets, the Los Angeles Lakers, obviously. So starting five, Luka over Murray, Austin Reeves and Christian Braun. I think that Reeves may be a little bit better, but I also don't think it's that far off. With Brown splits this year, I just need Brown to keep that up for me to say that I think he's better. So right now, I'm going to take Reeves very, 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 very slightly. Braun over Cam Johnson. Aaron Gordon over Rui, and then obviously Jokic over Ayton. Then you look at the bench, and I think that the Denver's bench clears the Lakers bench by far. The only person that I really do like on the Lakers bench is Jake LaRavia. That's a guy I was fiending for Denver to get throughout the offseason before he signed there. And I think that he's better than Dorian Finney-Smith, and that's somebody I'm going to get to because obviously, if you can see right here, we got the Rockets coming up, but I think that LaRavia is better than DFS. Not that I think that DFS is a bad player, but I think that LaRavia brings more to the Lakers that they need. Obviously, if Dalton Connect off the bench is a good shooter, but I think that Tim Hardaway is better, has more experience in the NBA, and it seemed that the Lakers didn't want him after trying to trade him and then not playing him in the playoffs. So I do think that the Nuggets match up well against the Lakers, but I think that they have the one step over them. Now, the difficulty here is the Clippers. Right? And the Rockets are another team I'll get to, like I said, but the Clippers have a very good roster without even bringing back Ben Simmons. And I know people think that's controversial to say because Ben Simmons stinks, but he was actually pretty good for them last year when it came to the defensive side. Maybe his stats didn't say that, and he's another guy that I covered and wanted Denver to get, and I still want them to get him to be a backup point guard and 5 on defense. But, I mean, going down their roster, Harden over Murray, and then the shooting guard is either Bogdan or Chris Dunn. I would take Christian Brown over both of them. Then you have Kawhi now at the small forward. I would take him over Cam. I would take Aaron Gordon over John Collins. And then I would take Jokic over Zubac. Now, it's funny because I think that Aaron Gordon has become what John Collins was supposed to be. Collins was good for the Hawks team when they made their playoff run. I actually loved that roster at that time with him, Trae Young, Kevin Huerter, Cam Reddish, DeAndre Hunter, Clint Capella. He was pretty good. I mean, Danilo Gallinari is backing him up, former Nugget legend. But like I said, I do think that Aaron Gordon is better. And I think that he is legitimately what people thought that John Collins would be. When it comes to the bench, it's a tough matchup because the Clippers are in talks to get CP3 and Bradley Beal if Bradley Beal is bought out. And it does seem that they're the favorites to land both of them. So that would beefing up their bench an enormous amount. But right now, I think that Denver's bench is better. Now, you look at what the Clippers were able to do, right? And they brought in Brook Lopez. They kept Batum. They kept Derrick Jones Jr. And if Bogdan's starting, that means Chris Dunn, who's a fantastic defender and great hustle player, coming off the bench for them. Now, if they bring in CP3 and if they bring in Bradley Beal, then their bench goes from whoever at the 1 and 2 to Chris Paul, Bradley Beal, Chris Dunn, or Bogdan, whoever's there, DJJ, Brook Lopez, and Batum, which I think is a stacked up bench compared to Denver. I think they match up pretty well. But like I said, I think that Denver's lacking that backup one right now for me. I know it's Bruce Brown and Pickett, but that backup legitimate one to be the guy who really takes Denver to that next level and beats out almost every bench in the NBA. Now, the last roster I want to get to, and shout out Bailey, who is one of my best friends, and he is a diehard Rockets fan, so we have our conversations. I might make him a little upset here, but this is actually the first point guard matchup that I am going to give to Jamal Murray. I think that he's better than Fred VanVleet. When it comes to Amen Thompson and Christian Brown. So writing it down, I said that it was even, but now I do think that Amen Thompson overall is a better player than Christian Brown is, and I'll get back to that in a second. But you look at the small forward, and obviously Cam Johnson is under Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is better. I would take Gordon over Jabari Smith, and I would take Jokic over Sengun. I'll get to the bench in a second. Going back to Christian Brown versus Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson can play defense on just about anybody. He is a freak athlete that can finish ferociously around the rim, but he can't shoot. And the only thing I'll give Christian Brown is the shooting ability, which I think is way better than Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson may do everything else better, but Christian Brown can easily beat him out when it comes to shooting. So I will give Amen that step up. Now, the benches are very tough because both benches got way better. Right, and I think that both benches are in this position where you're starting a very young guy at point, or the backup point guard, which is Reed Shepherd and Pickett. I do think that Reed Shepherd is better. I think there's a reason that he was taken so high in the draft, and I think that he was just waiting on an opportunity for him to actually play, which he will be seeing this year. I think that if you look at the offensive standpoint of the benches, I would give Denver the step up. But if this team were to play in a 7-game series, and Denver were to put their bench in around Jokic and a Rockets defensive lineup, if the Rockets were to keep their defense set, the Nuggets were not hitting shots, then that series goes very, very, very downward very, very, very fast. Now, I think that the thing that scares me about the bench of the Rockets is them having fresh legs constantly at center with Steve Adams, with Clint Capella, and with Sengun. And I'm not saying that there are these amazing centers, but Denver still, I mean, they have Jonas and they have Deron Holmes, which could easily make a difference. But these are vets in the NBA who all have experience in the playoffs and going pretty far in the playoffs. And again, a defensive lineup that is super big and insane realistically. Now you look at what they could do. And me and Stretch were talking, and I said the one thing that scares me is a lineup for the Rockets that looks like Amen Thompson at the 1, and then the 2 to 5 could be anybody in the ranks of Kevin Durant, Tari Eason, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jabari Smith Jr., Sengun, Steve Adams, and Capella. So you have a massive lineup where I would say the average height there is probably 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", around there. And you have Kevin Durant as a primary ball handler. So Denver can play a lineup that could compete with that, but defensively, they're nowhere close to it. So you have guys like, obviously, if you're going to run a big lineup like that, and they're going to have KD manning the 1 and Amen Thompson at the 2, your Denver's lineup would have to look something like Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, you might be able to throw Jamal in there to guard Amen Thompson, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon. Most likely they're starting 5, but you could also throw Deron Holmes in there with AG, Cam Johnson, which I think that Denver has the versatility to finally play different kinds of lineups. And again, if you have your lineup of Jamal Murray at the 1, Cam Johnson at the 2, Aaron Gordon, Deron Holmes, and Jokic, that's a great defensive lineup. And I think that Denver could thrive with that lineup. Now, does it match up to Houston's as well? I think they might be slightly better offensively, but again, I think that Houston's defense is going to be insane and top off the charts this year when it comes to defense. But I also said the one thing to Stretch I was talking to him about is that every single lineup I have Cam Johnson as the worst player on Denver. And I think that's a great problem to have when it comes to your starting 5, because this is a player who, around the right player, might be able to get an all-star nod, right? And everybody keeps talking about it. Him playing around Jokic, even Adelman said it, is the perfect kind of player. He can play off the handoff, one dribble, pull up threes. He's a better playmaker than MPJ is. He may be able to get an all-star nod next to Jokic. So him being the worst player in the starting 5 compared to most teams is the biggest plus in the world. I think when it comes to your starting 5 rankings, Brown might be the worst guy there realistically, and that's also an amazing factor to have, because Brown is an amazing player in your starting 5 as your 5th guy. So I think Denver's in a great spot right now, and I think that there's only room for improvement, and they still may sign somebody else. So that's all I got for you guys today, Nuggets Nation. I will have another episode breaking down the Summer League, hopefully, for you guys tomorrow. Make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We are getting closer to 1K subs every single day, so leave a comment, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.